Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Infinite Login live stream. If you're watching this live, thank you for being here. My buddy Cody here. I'll let him introduce himself in a moment, but he's going to be recording this. So if you're watching this at a later date up on my channel, you should go check out his. I'll have a link down in the description. He's going to have probably a more finished product than what you're going to see today. But yeah, thanks for being here. And Cody, who are you, man?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Cody Winkler. I am a senior network security engineer for a company in Missouri, and I do red team engagements for them. So it's a pretty exciting job. But aside from that, I enjoy doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in my free time, reading a bunch of books, and just generally messing my life up in the weirdest ways possible. So just a regular dude like everybody else.
Just a regular dude, yeah. Well, we don't, just so you guys know, viewers watching, we don't really have like a structure of what we want to do and talk about today. I'm going to kind of let Cody just take it and run for the most part, but really I think the goal is just to have a conversation, get to know each other, share a little bit about our backgrounds, and if you're looking to get into ethical hacking, hopefully our stories might help you in some way or another.
Yeah, and for my viewers, they may not be familiar with the small hacker YouTuber community. So for those that don't know you, tell us a little about yourself, Harley.
Yeah. So I go by Infinite Logins online at the moment, but I'm a pen tester, an ethical hacker. I love to kind of, I'm just really passionate about cybersecurity and information security kind of as a whole. I am newer to the field. I just started professionally working in pen testing within the last 6 months, but I've always kind of dabbled in different things. I did my first, I guess, real security assessment probably like 6 years ago when I was going through, I've got an associate's degree, so when I was going through school, I was able to convince my gym to let me do like a wireless assessment on their network. So that was technically like my first pen test, but I mean, I've been working as a sysadmin type role for about 4 years before moving into security. So now I'm doing this like weird thing where I talk on a camera and record my screen and put it on YouTube. But like my real goal behind that is to be just transparent. It's a learning process for me. So I like to make videos that talk about different hacking tools, right, and different processes or methodologies, and it just helps me learn them, and then I'll put it out there in case someone else is looking to learn too. I love to teach and give back where I can. So I do YouTube, I've got my own blog, I've got a small little Discord community where we do and talk about bug bounties because I'm trying to get better in that space. So yeah, that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
And I'm also relatively new to the field. I at least like getting like pen testing, red teaming sort of stuff. I just started back in February of this year, so totally understand it. Can be both easy and difficult at the same time getting into the field. But I'm really excited to talk with someone that still has like that experience fresh in their mind. I think a lot of people will really appreciate hearing your journey and how you ended up in the field of penetration testing, because let's be honest, it's a really cool job.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like the coolest job. I know when I was going through school, and I think a lot of students that are studying cybersecurity, pen testing is such a small niche thing. Like in the world of cybersecurity, it's not all that there is at all. But when you go through school, especially if your degree program has like a CEH path, a Certified Ethical Hacker course or something like that, it makes it really, really convincing for everyone to think like, oh, I've got to be a hacker if I want to do cybersecurity, or it's like the sexy thing to do. Like everyone like wants to be a pen tester. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool because if you are in that position, I feel like, I know when I was going through school, that's what I wanted to do, but a lot of people told me, like, pen testing is not entry level, like, you're not going to be able to do it, and it's really competitive, and there's not a lot of pen testers, and it was just, like, a lot of negativity around, like, you should go do something else, and I think that it's important for people that, like, know that that's what they want, that you can do it, and you can pull it off. It's going to take a ton of work, but you can do it,
Yeah, and it's like for those just starting to look at this field, they'll hear penetration testing and they'll hear red teaming and they'll think, oh well, that must be the same thing. But there's there is a lot of overlap, but there are some very very different like outcome objectives between the two. So for your day to day, or even just like on any engagement that you do, what's like a normal day on an engagement for you?
So like a normal day in a pin test, I kind of specialize. I've been thrown into more network assessments than anything else, and I think that personally that's just because I come from more of like a sysadmin type background. So understanding Active Directory and understanding how internal networks work are kind of like my thing. But in majority of the companies I've talked with and the majority of professionals that work in the field, like in 2020, the bread and butter for pen testing is web application security and pen testing web apps. And I think a day in the life for most normal people would be a lot of web app testing. So that would be things like the OWASP top 10, cross-site scripting, CSRF or SSRF, right? Those type of common vulnerabilities that you'd see in a web application is going to probably be where you spend most of your time. But for me personally, I work pretty independent for the most part. Like my company says, hey, we've got this assessment. Here's your timeline. Here's the scope. And go. That's how you get connected and go. And so from there, I get connected to my client's network, and as long as I stay within the scope and that timeline, I do my thing. And that's really about it. It's pen testing is really tedious. So like if you're new to hacking, and it's not like the movies, right, where you're sitting there and you're typing on a keyboard a thousand words per minute until 5 seconds later you're like, we're in. It's very tedious. You do a lot of scripts that run in the background or a lot of enumeration. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is there like a particular piece of my day that you're looking for?
I don't think so, but I guess in like the overall goals with your engagements, would you say that you're kind of looking at everything, trying to find every vulnerability that you possibly can as like a snapshot in time, or
Yeah.
is it kind of fluid and kind of changes with the scope?
It's really dependent on what the client's asking, because I work in consulting, which may be different than someone who's an in-house pen tester, right? Where you're a part of an internal pen testing team, and maybe you work with other people for the same company looking at that company's technology all the time. For what I do, I could be talking to one business today and another business tomorrow, and so it's just really important that we understand what the client's objectives are. And in some cases, they might just be looking to check a box. They're just like, do the assessment, tell us where our problems are, give us the report, and we'll move on. But in other cases, there'll be a client that really wants us to take like a certain scenario where they're like, look, so we're really concerned about this particular server, or we're really concerned about this, right? Exfiltration of data, or whatever the case is. And so you keeping that in mind, you might approach your pen test a little bit differently based on what their needs are. But I think as a pen test as a whole, you're typically looking at all of the technology and you're finding vulnerabilities that might exist, putting them in a report and sending them off. Where I think you get a little bit more like, I guess like objective oriented, is more in like a red team engagement, where you might be looking to fly under the radar. No one in the company knows you're coming. You're not trying to be so noisy, because with a pen test, I'm purposely noisy. Like, I'm scanning like crazy, and if I hit antivirus and my malware gets picked up or a tool gets blocked, I'm just more annoyed than anything else. I'm like, okay, now I got to find another way to get that malware on the system. And I'm not really concerned with like, oh man, I just probably set off an alert, right? Because they know I'm there in a pen test. They put me there on purpose. In a red team engagement, you might be flying under the radar, and part of the purpose is to test, okay, let's simulate a real attacker and how they would be trying to stay on the network and be as silent as possible and try to pivot around. And then if you get caught, that's when incident response and then the blue team kicks in, and then they use that opportunity to test their blue team and see, okay, well, how would our team handle this? So I do think that there's a lot of miscommunicate, or everyone has their own opinion on what a red team is in the community, but that's kind of how I would describe the difference between the two.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily like the same way for pen testing as it is for what I do. So there, like I said before, there is a lot of overlap. We'll go through a lot of the same steps. So the one of probably the most surprising aspects of it is that our engagements actually kind of start before they officially start. So not in the sense that we're like trying to break into stuff before the engagement starts. Like that is a no-go. That's an easy way to get fired.
Yeah.
But like we will do some OSINT will prepare beacons and stuff to bypass antivirus and make sure that all of our infrastructure is set up before we go into an engagement, and make sure that if and when we find something, we're going to be ready to go.
Yeah.
And so like we'll browse job postings, see if there's any like specific piece of technology that the company is looking for that could be applied to the scope of our engagement. Like there is a substantial amount of preparation that goes into it.
For sure. Yeah.
But ultimately the outcome is that we're, in a sense, we're kind of like the yin to the blue team's yang.
Yeah.
Like we are there to make them better. But on the same note, like, we don't have as many rules as regular pen testers do. So like we show up whenever we feel like it. Like our engagements are as long as we feel that they need to go on, and even with the scope, sometime like most of the time we'll stick to it like pretty religiously. But if there's times where we feel that it's appropriate for the scope to change through like midway through the engagement, we'll propose that to what's called the white cell. And the white cell is kind of like the game masters, making sure that everybody plays by the rules and one side doesn't have an unfair advantage over the other. So they're very fluid, and they can change on a whim.
Nice. And that's because you're part of like the in-house side of pen testing, right? Yeah, and that's interesting to hear, because I don't see that perspective as an outside consultant. Typically for us, the scope is purposely put into place because of whatever objectives that company has, and there's not really wiggle room out of that. So when we do, and that's a part of the thing that kind of sucks about like pen test consultant work, is sometimes you might not find anything, but that wasn't because there's not anything there. Like, that's just because the client underscoped the engagement. For example, I was just on a web app assessment where I only had I had one website to target. But all of the functionality, like, the website was just there to provide information about the company. Any of the links to actually like log into your account and do stuff that we as web app pen testers would typically start poking around with, all of that functionality redirects you to a different domain, and that domain's not in scope. So, I ended up writing out this report that says, yeah, you guys are in good shape. I couldn't find anything that was exploitable. But it's not necessarily true, because there's the actual core functionality that attackers would be looking for was outside of scope, and we couldn't test it. So, it's really kind of interesting to hear, the other side, where it's like, I bet if I was internal, I could probably approach the game master and be like, look, I think we need to add this in scope because of this reason, and maybe we can give you a better picture of what your threat model looks like, which is ultimately why we have jobs.
Yeah, and so on the flip side, we might come across something that would be like crazy awesome to put on a pen test report, but we might end up totally ignoring that because it doesn't fit in with the red team's objectives. So like if we have a very clear objective to see if we can extract some kind of information out of like an embedded environment, and we see, oh well, this environment over here, like, doors wide open, we might ignore that entirely. I mean, like, we'll bring it up, we'll mention it afterward, but we typically stay very focused to the outcome.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I doubt that we've got companies in here that are watching, but in the event that we do, and you're looking at this content because you're like, I wonder how to hire a pen tester, right? What type of questions do I ask? Let me just share. I can't share too much, obviously, but I can share a little bit of a story where we were on a social engineering engagement, and it was by far the funnest engagement I have ever been on, where basically everything was in scope when it comes to social engineering. So we were physically on site, so we flew out there and everything, and then we also had the ability to do phishing and vishing, and had they only allowed one piece, like if only on site was in scope and we couldn't call people or email people, we wouldn't have been successful. Or if we could only fish, we wouldn't have been successful, and same with vishing. But because they had all pieces in scope, we were able to physically go on site, and identify a password written on a sticky note, which then we were able to use to sign into an email account, which we could then send phishing emails out. Because from the outside, we tried to phish from basically externally outside the company, and they had awesome security measures in place for their email. Really, really strong. Like, none of our phishing emails made it through. I don't even think they got opened. So that was really, really cool. But because we could go on site, we got an internal email compromised at that point. Phishing was a little bit more open. But then, likewise, there was a time where we needed to get inside a different building, and we couldn't. Like, they were like, no, like, we can't let you in. We don't know why you're here. So we vished at that point the security officer who we just pretended to be our boss of the company we were impersonating. And because we were able to impersonate and vish over the phone, he gave us the green light. He's like, okay, if you come back tomorrow night, we'll let you in. So it's like if any one of those pieces were not allowed, or if they were underscoped, it wouldn't have been a successful, like, real picture of what their security posture is. We would have had to write, like, we couldn't fully compromise. But because those things were properly scoped, we could simulate what a real like, bad actors would do if they were targeting that company like we were. So it was really cool. That was a lot of fun. And it shows the importance of scoping an engagement correctly.
Yeah, and like, for a lot of people, they'll see, like, Hollywood movies, and they'll see, like, oh yeah, lights are off, some dude's wearing a balaclava, and the Matrix is going on all of the screens.
Yeah.
It is indeed very cool to like imagine that as real life, but believe it or not, sometimes the cool pen test stories are a lot more interesting than what you might see in a movie. Do you have any cool success stories that you can share?
That last one I shared was by far my most favorite. By impersonating the company that client worked with, we got an escort. The security guards completely escorted us inside the server room, inside the CEO's office, and this was a major, like, they do multiples, like, multi-billion-dollar company as far as what they do each year. So I don't even know what they'd be valued at, but it was really cool. That's my favorite story to tell. But then there's other times, honestly, a lot of engagements, they're not like elite hacks, you know what I mean? Like, most of the time it's really stupid stuff. Like, I got domain admin from plain text that was sitting in a log file. I've gotten domain admin and social security numbers from, like, file shares that were just globally accessible, or NFS shares. I was able to get access to all of the VMDK files for, like, the entire company on an open NFS share. I had access to, like, copy those and just recreate their VMs in my own environment if I wanted to. So it's just, like, really, really low-hanging stupid stuff that when I worked with small to medium-sized businesses, you kind of think, like, okay, like, they're a small business, they don't have the funds or the knowledge behind, like, understanding how to secure this properly, but the enterprise guys got it figured out. They're good on that level, and it's been kind of eye-opening to see that even the big guys, the people who have the budgets, they make really dumb mistakes, and it's not to trash on them. I think honestly most of it is people just don't know. Like, a lot of people don't understand why signing in to a workstation as domain admin is a problem. And to us hackers, we're like, okay, that's a problem. But a lot of IT admins don't understand that. So it's just an education process that I think is really important. That somehow, and it's more than just user awareness training. The IT guys need to be educated, and on like best IT practices. So I hope more and more companies, I hope pen testing will become more affordable in the future. So that way more and more companies can actually either hire in-house pen testers or be able to afford more regular pen test of applications and networks that they produce. Because I think right now a lot of companies, especially the small size guys, like they can't afford it, and so they just ignore it, and they never get properly educated. And then they get bit, and we've got problems,
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest concerns, at least in my opinion, that we really face today is that a lot of the bigger companies, they have budgets to hire people like you, and they have budgets to have internal people like me.
Yeah.
But a lot of small businesses don't, and oftentimes they're like one of the biggest victims of ransomware.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very real.
Do you see, I guess, any potential things that the hacker community could do to kind of offshore that, or maybe even if it's just public awareness? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, I do actually. I've got a lot of thoughts on that. Because I worked at an MSP for 4 years before I started pen testing, and so we just offered managed IT services to small businesses. Really, the largest client we had was like 60 seats, 60 workstations. So very small companies, and we had companies as small as 2 people that we had that paid us every month. So I have like this connection, I think, because of just that time I spent with all these small businesses, and I think small business is important for the health of community, but also you need to support small businesses because it's hard to start a company. Yeah. But and so being able to support those guys is obviously important. But I think as a hacker community, kind of what I mentioned is like being able to make pen testing affordable, and I don't know what the answer is because it's really hard to get into this field because of the amount of knowledge that you have to gain. It's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of studying. And so eventually when you do develop the skills needed to be successful, you can demand a high wage and you can demand to be paid really well. But I don't know. I feel like there's got to be communities that get together where we can find ways to make it more affordable for small businesses. And if that's just doing free security awareness training webinars on a regular basis, or maybe even donating. I think if every pen tester were to take like 1 week out of their year to go out and do a free assessment for a small business, I think that would help because there are hundreds of pen testers, and obviously it's just going to make a small dent. But doing those small like little donations is essentially what it is. Can, I think, get those companies more involved in the pen testing process, so that way they know what to expect for next time. But 2, like maybe just that one pen test is enough to identify all the low hanging problems that they can go and fix, and that could save that company down the road.
Yeah, and I think it's important that something at the very least goes in a direction, because as it currently stands, like people are just going to fall victim, and nobody likes seeing anybody getting screwed over.
Yeah.
But I think there's some avenues available out there for small businesses. Like I know you can sign up on BugCrowd, and like maybe you don't have the resources for like a full-fledged bounty program, but I mean, BugCrowd will still work with small businesses and help them develop like a points-only program, and everybody benefits from that.
Yeah.
Like even the people doing the testing, like they can build up points for their reputation and get invites to more developed programs.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
so I
No,
think that might be one option.
that is an option for sure. And I know that there's other resources. Like I live in Portland, Oregon, and there was when I was going through school, the Small Business Development Center, which I'm pretty sure SBDC is their acronym, and I'm pretty sure they've got one in every state. But basically, it's a government funded organization that is there to help provide resources for small businesses. And when I was going through school, they had recently received a grant where they were looking to provide cybersecurity resources for small businesses that couldn't afford them. So I was involved in the early stages of coming up with an organization called Cyber Oregon, where that's what we did. We just tried to, create assessment checklists people could do themselves, or other security awareness training, or links and articles and things like that, that if you're a small business owner and you needed help, you can go to this website and you can look at all of these resources available to you. And that might be a thing, if you run a small business or you know someone who does and they're struggling with cybersecurity and they don't have the money to keep operations secure. I would say look into seeing if the SBDC near you has maybe some resources available, and I'd reach out to them.
Yeah. In terms of, what's applicable to our lives, as penetration testers and red teams, it is indeed always cool to hear about the success stories.
Yeah.
And helping other people out, but sometimes failures can be like a really, really important lesson too. Do you have, so like one trend that's been going on in my channel is burp spider.
Right.
Yep. I think you've heard a couple of the stories.
Yep.
Do you have any oops moments that you really took a lot of value away from?
One of my first pin tests that I had ever been on, it was an internal network assessment, and I had Nessus run, and it came back and it's like, oh, all these machines are vulnerable to Eternal Blue, right? So I was like, sweet, that's an easy win. But they were, like, majority of them were, like, Windows embedded systems, which, if you've ever tried to use the canned, built-in Metasploit module for Eternal Blue on a Windows embedded system, you're going to have a bad time. So, as a stupid, noob, I just basically blind fired that off. And, yeah, I mean, like, all those embedded systems went offline. I think they all blue screened, and it was as simple as doing a quick reboot, but this is for a company that couldn't really afford that. So yeah, that was definitely like a oops moment that I've learned not to repeat again. So like, read the modules and read the code that you're firing off. Don't just blindly throw it, especially on a real engagement. And I've kind of now taken the approach where if I ever, like, even if it's remote code execution and I haven't tested it fully before or used it before on the exact same type of system, I'll just write it up as a finding and get approval before proceeding. So if that means I can't actively exploit it as part of the pen test and try to escalate or pivot from there, that sucks, obviously. But that's the difference between what we do and then like what bad guys do. Like they would blindly run that stuff and not care what the consequences are.
Must be nice. I say that jokingly, but like even for myself, like, yes, testing tools that you use is a key part of the process. It's like trying to think of like a really specific example. So like there's a lot of use with C2 frameworks, both in pen testing and in red teaming. But like one thing that you really have to worry about in red teaming is like if you run something through your C2 and it ends up like crashing your beacon, you don't have a way to get it back, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so like even in this world, it's important to test things too.
Yep, for sure. And for those that don't know what a C2 is, I've got videos on my channel. It's a command and control. One of my favorites is Covenant. It's a really, really cool platform to use. But yeah, I'd recommend trying playing with those if you haven't already.
Yeah, it's certainly well, free is a lot cheaper than the Cobalt Strike license.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's I don't know. I've never played around with Covenant. Was there like anything that drew you to it in particular? I know there's like another C2 out there called Batman or something, made by a guy named Batman.
No, nice.
No, I can't remember what the name of it was.
I don't know, but Covenant was cool. It's something that runs in Windows, and I just found that the PowerShell launchers in particular are really, really handy. So if you're in an internal Active Directory environment where you've got a ton of Windows machines, especially if you compromise, like domain admin creds or credentials to an account that's got local admin access to a bunch of machines, I love using CrackMap exec to just blast out C2 launchers, Covenant C2 launchers, and I love it so much that I made a whole video on how to do that exactly. And yeah, it was, I don't know, that's the first one I started playing with, and it had all these features that I felt like were really helpful. So I kind of just stuck with it.
Yeah, and being with fresh eyes on the field, there's probably some lessons that you felt that you needed to brush up on, or like some skills you needed to brush up on. I know that was certainly the case with me and Cloud and Active Directory. What about for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my background had more Cloud and Active Directory just because I had a path that, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's different. I think a lot of people pivot from IT to pen testing. So I just had the benefit of coming from the IT admin, the IT admin background, so that way I kind of knew a little bit about that stuff. But for me, my struggle was in web app security. That's why I haven't been on a ton of web app pen tests, is because that's ground that is still very new to me. And so I've been trying to learn a lot through like Portswigger Web Academy and Pentester Labs. Both are awesome resources if you're trying to learn web app security. But yeah, that's kind of like where I realized early on, looking at a web app, I'm like, I don't really know how to start. So that's where I've kind of focused my learning.
Yeah, it's web has always kind of been, I wouldn't say like a hobby, but I've messed enough around in web that I feel comfortable with just about any like built web app that I come across, like whether it's like even something strange like Java. Usually I can fumble my way around through it, but yeah, definitely the cloud side was new for me. So I used to be a network engineer, and it was like a very like traditional kind of network engineering, like routers, switches, that kind of stuff. And the field has like almost totally changed in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
What about your career path from like when you first started, when you first got interested in the field? What was like the job path to how you got into pen testing?
Yeah, good question. Hey, Jason, I see you in the chat. What's up, man? Hey, Day Cyber Wolf, or what? How do you say your name? Day Cyber Walks? Anyway, what's up, guys? Yeah, so my career path, it happened. So I wanted to be a pen tester. I knew like when I was 14, I wanted to be a pen tester because I was playing a game online. Some dude hit me up and was like, hey, let's add me in Skype. Let's go do this thing. So long story short, he adds me in Skype and he drops a phishing link into the chat, and tries to get me to sign into it. And I'm 14. I've never seen a phishing link in my life. And this was like 10 years ago, so phishing wasn't quite as prevalent as it is today. But I noticed some things were off, like the year and the copyright the copyright year in the footer was outdated. There was like a broken image. The URL said .tk instead of .com. So I just noticed a few things, and I knew it wasn't real, but I was immediately hooked. Like, I had to I was like, this can't be possible. You can't just clone a website. So I had to like understand how it worked, So I spent the next 2 weeks just trying to understand phishing websites and how to create them and how to host them, and I didn't even know what a domain name was at the time. So when I found out that at school in town had a cybersecurity degree program. It was like one of the first ones available. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna hop all over that. Maybe it'll help me understand what I'm actually doing. So I went through school. I got a 2-year degree in cybersecurity and networking. While I was in school is when I did that assessment against my gym. It was like a wireless assessment. That was a lot of fun. And if you're an aspiring pen tester and you don't know where to start and you don't know how to get going, just start talking to some of the companies you already are involved with that might know you, like a gym, for example. Like if you go there all the time and you know the owner, just sit down with them, tell them about a recent breach that happened at a company that's similar to his, scare them a little bit, and then say, hey, look, I'm studying for this. I'm looking for an internship. Would you mind if I do this assessment? I'll give you a report. Not going to cost you anything, right? Like those are things you could do, and that's what I did. And so I did that. I was a part of the Cyber Oregon organization, like I talked about earlier. And then when I got out of school, I just started working in the field of IT. And it kind of started as like a help desk position, but quickly evolved to network administration, systems administration. Before long, I was overseeing like our entire service delivery for IT services. That's all we did, but I was like the head guy for that. And so I became more of like a manager, and I was managing a help desk team and doing all kinds of projects. And the entire time I was sprinkling security in. Like I tried to push for new security things, like security awareness training programs, and trying to see if we could do more type of like pen test assessments for our clients. But it wasn't my day job. That wasn't what they hired me to do. So I had to go home and study more and try to understand those things outside of work. And I went to DEF CON in 2019, and it was a phenomenal experience. It's a security conference in Las Vegas that I would highly recommend anybody who likes this stuff to go to. And it just kind of made me realize, like, this is the community I want to be a part of. These are people that are my age that work in pen testing. They know how to hack stuff, but I don't, and I want to. So it just made me realize, like, if I'm ever going to do it, it's going to be up to me. So I got back home, and I just started looking out at what resources are out there, and I came across Heath Adams, the cyber mentor, and all kinds of other just online content that was available, and I just started soaking it all in. And I just took the leap, and I signed up for OSCP and started studying in that course, and started getting involved. I joined Reddit groups and started talking to people. I joined Discord servers and Slack channels and just started talking with people. I went to meetup.com and I searched for like any of the security meetups that were going on, and I found Portland's got a couple of them, and I started going to those every month. We would just meet up at a pub someplace, drink beer, and talk about security, and it was awesome.
Who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't working in it. I was an IT admin, really. And so going in there and hearing people that were pen testers telling me about their job, and I just asked them questions. I was like, how did you do it? What do you study? I'm doing this. What do you think of that? Like, you know what I mean? And I made connections on LinkedIn. I made connections on Twitter, and I just kept doing that. And then out of those connections I made, I started talking with companies. I would ask those people, hey, do you know if your company's hiring, or do you know someone I could talk to? And I think over the course of 2020, I probably interviewed with at least a dozen different companies, or I would say at least a half dozen companies, and then a dozen recruiters who probably also helped spread my name around. So it got to the point where interviews were really easy because I knew the questions that they were going to ask. It just made it to where when I actually came across a real opportunity that I really, really wanted to get, my nerves were kind of gone. I had done it a bunch. I knew how to answer those questions. I knew what they were looking for, because at the end of each interview, I asked, like, what can I do to make me a better candidate in the future? Because I knew I wasn't ready. And they told me, and I did those things, like starting an online blog, starting to do Hack the Box write-ups and giving back to the community, doing YouTube, right? Just making additional connections. And over time, I mean, it felt like for at least a straight year, nothing was happening, right? It just felt like I'm grinding away. I'm not getting anything out of this. But then, out of nowhere, it felt like a huge landfall, and I had like 4 different opportunities fall in my lap that were like, now you get a pick. Where do you want to go? And so it's really cool. I think to try to actually, I don't know. I think just networking and not forgetting why you're doing this and not giving up are probably the most important and hopefully lessons that you take away from my story as to how I did it.
I would totally agree. Kind of similar to you when I was a teenager. I actually had like a completely different plan, but once I kind of discovered the world of hacking, then I was like, I want to do this for work someday.
Yeah.
And it was not an easy journey for me at all. And I don't think it's an easy journey for anyone. But definitely, I think the most important thing that really carried me through all of that was, sticking to the goal. Like, bad stuff's gonna happen. Like, there's gonna be setbacks. But if you can really like keep your focus and stay determined on what you want, you can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true with anything. And I am, I've got a ton to learn, and I think everyone does. And I don't know a lot about a lot of things, but the little bit that I know about the little things, where I can give back and help other people, like that's what I like to do. And I think it's important to play to those strengths too.
Looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently to maybe like better hedge your bets toward getting into the field earlier?
I don't know. I kind of think everything for me happened the way it should have. Like, I would say when I got out of school, I wish I started studying for the OSCP sooner and doing all those things I just described back then. I think maybe I could have got into pen testing sooner, but the 4 years I spent at that MSP, I think were extremely valuable. Like, because of that experience, I understand the technology so much better than I would have if I was just trying to break into it right off the bat. I learned a lot about how Active Directory and those type of domains work, and I learned a lot about how IT admins think. And so those experiences, I think, are really, really valuable. But I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I do feel like it kind of went the way that it should have for me.
Yeah, and in a weird way, I kind of feel the same. Having gone through the Air Force primarily for like most of my previous experience, it's there was a lot that went with it that I wouldn't have traded for anything else. But it's kind of like that old dichotomy, should I go to college? Should I not?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it matters which way you choose anymore. But if you decide to go military, it will definitely set you back, and not in like the ways you might think.
I know. I've heard, in that last interview you did, he had a military background as well, and you both kind of agreed that it probably wasn't the best move, which is interesting too, because for a lot of people like me that don't have any military background, when I hear about how if you had gone to the military and you could get all your school paid for, and like, it sounds like it would be really beneficial, and maybe that was the path I should have taken. Yeah,
it sounds like the golden ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
It does.
Like, it sounds like the best deal on earth, but
yeah.
There's a lot of other things involved with it.
But for those that ask the question that is like, how do I get started? Do I go through school? I only have an associate's degree and I pulled it off, but I will admit, on a lot of the companies I talked with wouldn't even, like, as soon as they found out I didn't have a bachelor's degree, they were saying, like, that's a hard thing for us. Like, go back to school, get a bachelor's degree, and come back and talk to us. But then there's a lot of other companies that couldn't care less, and they're like, I don't care. What can you do? And so I think if you have aspirations to work for a particular company, like if you look out there and you're like, man, I really like how this pen testing company does things, finding out what their requirements are. They might have a requirement where you have to have a bachelor's degree, and I don't mean look at the job posting and it says I have to have a bachelor's degree. Like, go out and talk to them, reach out to someone, hit them up on LinkedIn, call the main line if you have to. Like, figure out someone who works there and ask them, is this a hard requirement? And if it is, you have to weigh that decision, like, how bad do you want to work there? But I think in most cases you'll find that it's not, as long as you can prove that you can do other things. And certifications are an easy way to do that. I don't have any certifications currently. I failed my OSCP twice. But I'm going for my third OSCP attempt in 2 weeks, and hopefully it'll be my last OSCP attempt. But I don't think certifications are also necessary, but the value that you gain from learning the courses that those certifications put you through is 100% necessary, and the relationships you build during that time is 100% necessary. My first job I got because of the OSCP, not because I had the certification, but because I was going through that process. I would browse the OSCP subreddit constantly, and I would help others that had questions, and I'd post my own questions. And because I was doing that one night, someone posted in there saying, hey, we're looking for an intern. And I jumped on it. And I would have never had that opportunity had I not taken the OSCP route. So,
were there any other really interesting things that surprised you during the job hiring process, or like the job search process? Like things that you learned from it that you feel other people could benefit from?
I think the important thing is to make sure that you stand out. Like, I mean, I think that goes with any type of job. But if you can do small things that most other people aren't doing, then it's going to help you a lot. Even if you don't know how to be a pen tester yet, like, as long as you can communicate that I don't know these things, but I'm learning them and I will know them, and I just need someone to give me an opportunity. I think that's all that you can do, and a lot of companies are going to say, no, we really need somebody who can hit the ground running. But once you get your foot in the door someplace and you get a little bit of experience, I think it's going to be much easier to move around, and find other companies that'll bring you in. But as far as like things I was shocked about during the hiring process, the bachelor degree thing being such a hard requirement for some people, I was kind of shocked about that. And then, I don't know. I mean, I don't really think... I can't recall any things that were, like, super shocking for me, but I also just did so many that I kind of now know what they're going to ask. So if you're watching this and you want to connect with me, whether it's, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Discord or whatever, or on YouTube, leave a comment, I don't care. Just reach out to me, I'll find you. And I'm happy to sit with you and share like the type of questions they asked me, and like what I did to try to prepare for the interviews. Like, if I can give back and help you get in this field, I'm happy to do it.
Yep, and it's really important that we have people that are willing to do that, because like there's like, you definitely need like a sort of work-life balance, but I mean, like at least in my opinion, I think the people that really want to be in this field probably also do this like in their free time, and networking is a big part of it too.
Yeah.
So it's really noble, as a matter of fact, for you to take the time out of your day to do that on top of all of the other things that you do.
I mean, I just know that if I had someone to do that for me, it would have been so much easier, And I'm at a position in my life where I've got free time and I can help. Plus, I just love talking about this stuff. Like, I could talk about it forever. So if I can find others that also like talking about it, friendships are cool. So I like to make them.
Yeah, and so with that being said, it's really important to have someone that you look up to, and likewise be someone that other people look up to. But even beyond that, like, nobody has all of the answers, and it's really important to take in as many different perspectives as you can, which is why I love talking to people on my channel. Like, I think I told you before. I don't particularly plan on like just solely doing interviews, but I mean,
Right.
like, I definitely enjoy hearing people's lives and their perspectives, and how they got into pen testing, because most of the time it's like completely different from my own experience.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, like, sometimes when you do something for so long, you just kind of get like tunnel visioned. You don't really like see everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
And so, like, in that direction, um, what are some things that you think are going to be challenging to either pen testers or like the field of pen testing in general over the coming years? And that could be anything like Terminator invasion, automation. Automation's a big one. I hear people kind of get a little anxious about that one.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still new to the field, so I haven't been able to see like automate, because automation's been a thing that's been progressively taken over, and I haven't been able to see that progression. So it's hard for me to say like what I kind of foresee as coming in the future. But I do think that, especially in the concept, like the conversation of automation, it's a tool more than anything else. And like when you start thinking about like web application security and like business logic flaws that a vulnerability scanner isn't going to be able to find. I think that no matter what, even if AI gets super advanced, like there's never going to be the need to, like, they're never going to eliminate the need for people like us to go in and test these things, because our whole jobs are testing technology. Like that's what we do. We test technology. And automation is technology. Someone needs to test that to make sure it's secure. Someone needs to test that to make sure it doesn't miss anything, right? So there's never going to be like the elimination of a penetration tester. I don't think it might change. Like the type of work we do is going to evolve, no questions asked. Just like it's changed from how it was 10 years ago. For if you hear and watch interviews from people that worked in the field that long, the stuff they do today is way different than the stuff they used to do. And so we've got to continue to evolve, but that's just true in technology as a whole.
Yeah. What are some exciting things that you see coming to the field?
Likewise, I'm excited to see where automation goes. If we can get automation to remove and eliminate some of our stupid tasks that we see ourselves doing every day, then we can focus and dive in on the more advanced stuff. So I think that that's going to be cool. I'm excited personally just to learn more about how pen testing works today, and being so new to the field, there's a lot that I still haven't seen. And so, to me, every day is extremely exciting because I'm already seeing new stuff and I'm already learning new things. And that's the type of thing, like, if you enjoy technology and you enjoy every day being something new, this is a great opportunity, to try to dive into, because you're never going to get bored. You might get bored because you're doing the same type of assessments every day, but you can always research new ways to do those assessments.
Yeah, I think with the advent of deep learning in recent times, I think the way that we conduct phishing engagements is going to be dramatically changed in the very near future. It's like deep fakes is getting better all the time. There's natural language processing that's getting better all the time. Like eventually, it will get to the point where like you might be able to artificially like recreate the CEO of your target company and be like, hey, how about you just give me remote access to the external servers?
And that's huge, man. That's really, really huge to think about, because if you look at just regular phishing today, like, it's very successful. On that engagement I was telling you about, out of the people we got to actually answer the phone, 60% of them that answered, we were able to successfully phish. And that was either get them to give us their password to their email account and accept the MFA prompt when we went to sign in, or talk them into going to a website, signing into that website and pulling their credentials that way. And most people, like, if you have a friendly voice and you don't have it, like, if you sound like someone that's local to them and you're nice and you have a convincing enough pretext, they'll believe you. So I could only imagine when deepfakes get to that point where it's easily accessible for anybody to do what you just described. I'm kind of worried to live in that world, to be honest with you.
It definitely sounds exciting, for us and, doing the job. But I mean, when the technology evolves to the point where an artificially created, personality is almost indistinguishable from the real one, I don't even know if the world's prepared for that, because
I mean, I'm already scared. Like, when I do pen tests and I see brands that I recognize, doing really bad things as far as, like, managing their security or managing customer data that I might even be a customer of, I get worried. I'm like, how do we help these people understand this better? And how do we prevent this from being such a problem? So yeah, when you talk about stuff like that, that's really, like, it'll keep me up at night. But because of that, like, we've got to find solutions to those issues, and I think what it comes down to for that is training and ways to use technology to try to detect them. But yeah.
Yeah, and even kind of in a different context, but weirdly kind of similar. You remember the big Twitter breach from a couple of months ago?
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, even if we were to, if we had the capability to like verify or authenticate somebody in real life, with like a blue check mark, I mean, you might not even know. Like, there's just so much weird things coming, and I really don't know what the future is going to look like, but as far as security is concerned, I'm certain we're going to still have jobs.
There's no question about it, and when you start talking about, like, you had a conversation about, I think it was like virtual augmentation and virtual reality, and that's a really interesting topic too. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's how we can do the verified human blue check mark, is if you're wearing, like, glasses and you look at someone, it can do some sort of check that way. But yeah, I mean, there's never going to be, like, here's the thing. Technology has always been ahead of security. People in security have been playing catch up the entire time. And because of that reason, technology is going to keep moving ahead. And security is it's never gonna catch up. And I think in some ways, technology is gonna, like, continue to just accelerate, because there's new people who have new ideas and they're smart and they know how to develop stuff, and that's where they spend their time, is developing new stuff. But there's not as many of those people in the security world that take the time to say, okay, well, did you write that new stuff securely? And there's always new ways to break into it too. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue at all.
Yeah. Speaking of developing new things, I've heard you talk about a tool that you're very excited about. Is there any secrets that you can share with us? Or
you talking about the one that I was developing?
Uh-huh.
So I'm not a developer. We'll start by saying that, just point blank. I've written a couple PowerShell scripts in my like IT admin job to help automate tasks like onboarding new users, connecting to Office 365, and then, like, documenting everything in our documentation system. I've written PowerShell scripts to do that. And when I was on an engagement where I compromised an Office 365 account, there was a lot of stuff that I did in PowerShell, like, as part of my enumeration process. So I started thinking, like, all right, well, if I'm manually doing all these PowerShell commands, why don't I just write a script that can do it for me? So if you've got a programming background and you want to help me clean up some code, because again, I'm not a developer, I've got, like, this weird tool that will help automate, or I guess, like, enumerate an Office 365 account. And it'll do a lot of cool things. So reach out to me. I don't want to share too much in case someone else tries to clone my idea, but yeah, I think that that's something that I might try to release in the next, I don't know, month or so if I feel confident enough that people aren't going to tear apart my code. That's kind of where I'm at. Is I don't want to put it on the internet for people to be like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
I'm kind of feeling like the Lord of the Rings meme right now, with Frodo being like, "Okay, keep your secrets."
Right.
But yeah, very cool. It's exciting, and there are some very good kind of cloud-based kind of I guess content or there's not really like a platform, if you will, to really dig deep into O365 enumeration and exploitation. Like there's content out there, but there's nothing like really well put together.
Well, yeah, and that's why I don't want to release my thing because it's not well put together. but it's a hole in the market that I think could be really, really cool. And I'm not interested in making money off of it. I just want to make sure it's a quality thing that I throw out there. So yeah, I think it's hopeful for people like us, that when we were doing that campaign, the Vishing campaign, within an hour we had like a dozen credentials, and each one of them can take forever if you're like if you're like going through each one of those accounts and trying to pull details out of emails or pull details out of OneDrive files or looking at SharePoint documents. Like, it can take a really long time to browse through all that stuff manually. So if there was a platform that could help automate the process and pull out all of the juicy stuff, I think that would help a lot of people, a lot of pen testers. It could probably be used obviously for bad, but that's kind of the world we live in. Anything, I guess, any of the pen testing tools can always be used for bad.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certainly a lot of stuff out there, like especially for AWS, but with Azure and O365, it seems kind of weird because it felt like it came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like one year it was all just like everything's local, everybody has their own mail servers and their own domains, now, and then the next day it was like, hey, boom, Azure and all of the cloud is here, surprise.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm only 24. I've only been working in IT for 4 or 5 years, but my boss that I worked with at that MSP, he basically tried to brand us as a cloud service provider at first. And he was really pushing stuff moving to the cloud. This was 2010 era, right? 2010 to 2014 or so, where it was all still very new and a big buzzword. But yeah, I mean, it's rare now to come, especially when it comes to email. It's rare to come across an on-prem Exchange server, from my experience. I think everybody's in Office 365 or Google, and personally, I think there's a lot of reasons to go to Office 365 for email, and then if you're there for email, you might as well put everything else in Azure or Azure, whatever you pronounce it as. But yeah, it did seem like it kind of came quick, and that's why security is always going to have. I guess if you're a security professional, you're always going to have a job, because there's going to be people that rush to move things to the cloud or move things to the next big thing. Before anyone even really understands it. So there's going to be a ton of security holes.
Yeah, and if there's any key trait that I would recommend anybody to develop, it's the ability to rapidly adapt, because this field changes literally every day.
Yep.
Sometimes multiple times a day.
Yep, for sure. Wayne, by the way, I see you in the chat asking some really awesome Windows administration type questions. One of them he asked here: does Windows Server have tools to detect attacks like Kerber roasting? He works in a Windows domain environment. So just to answer that as if I would if I was consulting with somebody, Kerber roasting is really tough to eliminate. It's an attack that the best mitigation strategy is to have really strong Windows credentials. So on those Surface accounts, make sure that you just have really, really strong passwords that are not going to be broken. And that's going to be your best mitigation strategy. And then the second step would be being able to set up alerting for when a Kerberos attack takes place. And you can do that by, if you have like an RMM tool or some way to monitor the event viewer. Obviously trying to comb through event logs and pulling out those event IDs aren't going to work. But if you can set up some sort of alerting system so when that event ID gets logged, you get a notification, that's going to be the next best step, because then you'll know when a Kerberos attack took place, and you can go and reset those passwords so the captured credentials won't be valid anymore. So, cool.
Yeah, and if your organization has money, Microsoft offers a service. It's called the ATA, but I can't remember what it stands for. I think it's Advanced Threat Analytics or something like that. And so they will do all of that for you. So like it's kind of like Minority Report, right? They have like 3 kidnapped children in a basement, and they're all like tied together by the brainstems. they just like watch all of like the Active Directory attacks. Like it's really deep and really powerful, but I think it's really expensive too. But Microsoft ATA is something to check out if your organization can afford it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of. That's the thing that also sucks about security is it's expensive, and that's what we were talking about in the beginning about just trying to make it more affordable. And I think that that's something that we kind of need to move as a whole community towards some way or another. But
I'm happy to take questions with you if your viewers have anything. I think I covered all of the ones that I wanted to.
Cool. Yeah, the only other thing was also something that Wayne had mentioned. He said that he's dealt with transitive net logon service attacks against our domain during the past year, and poor firewall configs were the cause. I don't think it was a question. He was just kind of sharing some of his background. I do think it would be really cool. This isn't my idea. This was my boss's idea for the pen testing company I work with now, to start like a podcast type thing where it's like kind of like this. We just have a conversation, but then you have people that call in, like people like Wayne who call in and they ask questions, and almost like a regular show where people can call in and get consultations for free. And I think that could be a huge way that we do make security more accessible for companies. Because otherwise the only other way to like get one of us on a phone call is hopefully you'll catch him in a live stream to ask a question or to pay for a pen test, and that just may not be reality for some people.
Yeah. And, speaking of resources, like I don't want to shut this down without talking about resources. What were some that have helped you in your journey so far?
To become an ethical hacker?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got all kinds of shout-outs that I can throw. Most of my learning has been free, available content on the internet. I made a video that kind of talked about how I became a hacker in 2020. So that kind of goes over everything I'm about to share. But it's networking, finding any events that you can, finding Reddit groups, finding Discord channels. Those are going to be awesome resources where you can just really get personal with people. And then YouTube. YouTube is huge. There's all kinds of content creators. We've got Cody Winkler. He's a great guy. We've got this dude named JSONSec, who was in the chat earlier. I really like his stuff. He does YouTube videos of all kinds of things, but he also has quite a bit of reviews where he talks about some of the other resources I'll name drop, like Pentester Labs or Burp Suite Academy, or the OSCP exams, different certification paths he does reviews on. And he's a smaller channel, so give him some love. And then, of course, the Cyber Mentor. I think anybody would drop his name as a go-to beginner-friendly guy. He's a pretty well-known dude. IPSec. Oh my God, I can't watch a single IPSec video without taking away at least like 3 new things. Majority of the content that I produce on my blog is just something I've copied straight from his video because I learned this new thing and I'm like, I'm not going to remember this, but I need to, so I'll go write a blog post about it. He's insane, the stuff that he can do. He just does like hack the box write-ups if you haven't watched his stuff before. Really cool guy. And then, I mean, there's all kinds of people that I'm sure I'm forgetting. There's a dude named Conda. He just started releasing like ethical hacking content. He's newer to the community too. And he's got a Discord channel that I'm a part of. It's got like 60 members currently, and there's some really, really cool people in there. I'd highly recommend joining that. So yeah, hopefully, if you're watching this and you're like, man, you didn't name me, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people. But do you have resources in mind that you would like to kind of give a shout out to?
Most of the ones that have been helpful for me have been the hands-on ones. So way back in the day, it was smashthestack.org. They had like very much like over the wire style challenges, kind of war games, if you will. That was a very different time, and there wasn't nearly as many resources available. So like if you got stuck on something, you couldn't just, I mean, they did have forums, but like you couldn't just go on there and be like, hey, can I get a nudge? Because like they just like give you like this PhD like thesis write-up,
right?
Either about the subject in general, and you wouldn't understand any of it, or they tell you to F off, and like go read something. So like these days, what I think is doing really good is Try Hack Me for sure. Because like I know it might have been the same way for you, but I know when I started, like it was very difficult to pick up the material at first because like there wasn't like a whole lot of examples, and so like even if you did come across something, it was like for a very specific context.
Yeah.
But I think Try Hack Me is doing amazing things. CyberSec Labs is another one that I've heard great things about. But I mean, even Hack the Box, like I think some of the ratings on their active machines are a little skewed.
Sure.
But overall, they do offer a great service, and I think the most important thing that people can do to get better is to actually do it.
Yeah.
But I understand there's a huge learning curve. Like especially with all of the new technologies coming out.
If I was a beginner starting over again, I would start with the Cyber Mentor's, either his $10 Udemy course. He now actually has TCM Academy. It's his own website. Haven't checked it out, but it's supposed to be the same course at, I think, a price that he completely profits from. So if you want to support him, that'd be the better way to buy it. But he's got a practical ethical hacking course that teaches literally like beginner stuff, like really, really basic how to use in-map type stuff. So I'd highly recommend starting there. And he also then uses Hack the Box examples for really beginner boxes. I agree with you. I wouldn't trust the ratings when you're looking on Hack the Box and people can pick the ratings or whatever. I wouldn't trust that as like your gauge of difficulty. But if you look at the Cyber Mentor stuff, he really finds the beginner boxes and he shows you exactly how to enumerate them and how to exploit them step by step. And once you go through that, if you also didn't want to pay for it, he's got all kinds of free stuff on his YouTube channel, like Hacking for Noobs, I think, or Hacking for Beginner, something like that, where it's the same stuff. It's going through Hack the Box and doing that. But once you get past that level, I would start watching IPSec. You're not going to understand him. You're going to watch that and you're going to be very intimidated and you're going to think like, I don't know this at all. I don't know what's going on. Don't give up. Keep watching IPSec and just mimic what he's doing and start with some of his older stuff if you need to, because I think he explains it a little bit more in the older stuff than he does now in the newer stuff. But that's where I would start, as far as like practical hands-on. I haven't used Try Hack Me. I've looked at it and I've never really, it felt too gamey for me. I really like Hack the Box, where it's like you spin up a machine, you connect to a VPN and you just hack at it. Like, that's really practical to me. That's like exactly what you would see in a pen test, and that's exactly what you would see on the OSCP exam. So I like that. But I've heard Try Hack Me is a great resource for like hand holding, like step by step, this is what you do.
Yes.
So if you're a beginner, I can see that being a lot of use, like really useful. I don't know.
As far as difficulty on Try Hack Me goes, their hardest boxes are like below easy level on Hack the Box.
Yeah.
Like So I mean, it serves a great demographic, because like there's a lot of people you'll see them all over the place. Reddit, a variety of different forums, Discords. They'll be like, "Hey, I don't really understand this topic. What can I do?"
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly believe like if you're brand spanking new to the field, Try Hack Me is going to be a good place for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you need someone to talk to personally for like I've really wanted to do this, but I've got all these doubts, or I don't think it's for me, or I'm too scared, I'm not good enough, or whatever, right? Reach out to me for sure. I'm sure Cody would be offering the same exact thing. And if we needed to chat on Twitter, or if we needed to chat like on a Discord call or whatever the case is, like that was really helpful for me. I paid the cyber mentor, I paid him like for an hour of his time to take the leap. Like I was really worried about leaving my sysadmin job, and I was really worried about like all these self-doubts I had of getting started. I wasn't good enough to start OSCP, but I got back from DEF CON and I wanted to. So I called him, and we spoke for an hour, and by the end of that call, I got off of it, and I literally immediately went to offensive security and paid out of pocket to start my OSCP course. And so sometimes you just need that push from somebody in the field who's done it before, to just tell you like get over yourself and just do it. And I'm glad that I had that experience. So if you need someone like that, we're here to help.
Yep, and that's exactly why I like having discussions like this, because I know almost nobody does it.
Yeah.
Nobody's. I mean, there's a couple of people out there like Lisa Forte on Twitter. Like she's out there always talking to people about people's career paths and what they're doing. But I mean, like overall, it's really not that widely talked about. So like when someone comes up and they're like, "Hey, how do I get into the field of ethical hacking?"
Right.
Everybody's got their own answer, and it's like spread out all over the place. It's really difficult to find. So that's one reason that I like having these discussions, is so that one, like, it piques my curiosity. I'm not gonna lie, but on the other hand, like, people might find themselves in their own circumstances, and they can come and hear discussions with people like you, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, that's not a bad idea. Why don't I try working at an MSP?"
Yeah. Yep. Just mimicking the success. Like if you find someone who's doing what you want to do what they did. It's really simple. Do what they did, and you'll get there. And obviously, everyone's journey is going to be a little different, and luck is going to be sprinkled in along the way. But yeah.
Don't wait 8 years between exam attempts like me.
I mean, it's kind of similar. I didn't wait 8 years, but my first exam attempt I took in March for the OSCP. I didn't take my second one until September or October. It was October. That's a pretty big gap. I will admit, the second time around, it was so much easier than the first time around. And, I continued to study and learn, but there was a period where, like, a lot of self-doubt kicked in. It's like, am I going to be able to do this? And, motivation and stuff kind of shifted. But I didn't make that same mistake this time. I took my last attempt in October. I have a two-month cooldown, and then I'm going at it again here in December. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes this time around.
Yeah, and I wish you the best of luck. I remember my first attempt. I was, like I said, I kind of felt like I was okay at the time. But significant reporting mistakes is ultimately what did me in. That and not paying attention. But after preparing for so long, my second attempt, it was like Michael Jordan playing against like fifth grade basketball players. Like it was just ridiculous. So I think probably one of the biggest things that helped me along the way was just building my own labs and building my own scenarios, because like you can go into Hack the Box and you can go into like all of these challenge sites and you can do them and it's fine. But when you build your own and make them like as weird and intricate as you can. Like I mean, you can even get like a pretty cheap Azure subscription these days. But so like what I did was I would build networks via GNS3, and then I would tie in VMs with VirtualBox.
Nice.
And so it was almost like a small actual network.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to learn pivoting really, really well like that. And so like even just doing simple things like that can really hunker down on a topic that you may or may not have problems with.
And I think that's your IT background shining through a little bit, because in IT it's super huge to make home labs. Like that's not a security thing as much. Like you don't really hear that as much in the security community, because there's all these like Hack the Box, Phone Hub, right? There's all those resources. But for almost any regular IT type role, that's definitely an interview question I would ask when I was a hiring manager, and be like, so what does your home lab look like? If they didn't have a good answer, it wasn't always the best fit for the role. So making Active Directory environments or whatever just out of VMs on your home system, or maybe you have like a different server set aside, is definitely big in the IT world of regular IT stuff.
Yeah, and you could build all sorts of interesting scenarios too. Like I think one of the favorite ones that I made, it was kind of like a quirky like RoboCop remake. So like all of the domain characters were characters from RoboCop. Nice. And the domain administrator was the main bad guy.
Nice.
Dick Jones.
Yeah.
So like and even then, like once you pivot through, like there was a back-end host running a SCADA suite by a company called Schneider Electric.
Yep.
And the application is called IGSS, which is like their main like ICS platform that they make. And so like, I mean, it wasn't like a real thing, like a real network that you would see in real life. But just going through, and then at the end of the day, you get to like turn a bunch of valves, like max them out to the red, like make a pretend like water pump explode.
Nice.
Like dude, if you could build like crazy situations like that, like it's fun at the same time.
Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, the home lab stuff that I've done, I just use Oracle Box too. Like you don't have to get crazy with it. If don't get intimidated by it. You can use Oracle Box. You could spin up a Windows server. You could spin up some Windows 10 hosts and connect them. Configure your own little VLAN and configure your own subnet with all those machines. And that's what I've done on a lot of the YouTube videos that I make. I created my own domain, and I used the NBA as a theme. So like LeBron James is domain admin, so just like stupid stuff like that. And you can have fun with it for sure. And I think that's definitely huge, because hacking stuff and breaking into stuff is a lot of fun. But if you don't really understand the impact of what you just broke into, or you don't understand how to build the thing that you're hacking, you're missing a big piece of it. And if you're doing consulting work, going and talking with these people who build these networks and manage them, you've got to be careful with it. Like that's their baby, you know what I mean? Like they've spent a ton of time and effort into building that, and so you going in there and you're saying, yeah, so in 2 hours we tore it apart. That doesn't always feel good for them. So you've got to, having that background I think is very beneficial if you're going to be a consultant. And I imagine it's probably similar in in-house pen testing roles, but
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the biggest difference, though, is that the stakes are a lot higher if you mess up.
Yeah, sure.
But ultimately, I mean, there's really 3 really good skills that you don't even really need to be born with them. Like you can just kind of build them. So like communication, probably number 1. But number 2, probably like getting comfortable writing reports. I think that kind of ties in with communication a little bit. But
not necessarily. Some people can be really, really good at like talking and communicating with people, but they suck at putting it on paper, or it looks like crap,
Yeah,
So,
and then resilience being the 3rd one. You got to be able to take the punches, so to speak.
Yeah, that's huge. If you watch any of Nahum Sec, he's a live streamer for basically he's really big in the bug bounty community. That's like what he does full time, and he has a ton of interviews where he brings people that are well known in the bug bounty space in, and they have conversations. And one question he asks everybody that goes through is, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? And it's a huge problem in any community probably, but definitely in ours. And I have this every other week where, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Or if you're on an engagement and you don't find anything, like, you kind of start to worry, like, is this, like, I'm not good enough at my job because I can't find anything, and so it's like, it's a problem that you've got to be able to juggle for sure, and you've got to be resilient to keep going back and trying again and trying again. So that's really cool. That I'm glad that you threw that in. I think a lot of people don't throw that in when they talk about like skills or personality traits needed to be successful in this field.
Yep. Resilience is probably the only reason why I'm even in this field, is because just I've dealt with a lot over the last 10 years, and and I know at least like one personal thing of mine, but like there's times where it can be really easy to be like, oh, screw this, I'm giving up, but you just gotta keep going, man.
Yep.
Like, no matter what.
Yep, for sure. And for those that are like, reporting is my weakness or communication is my weakness, if you have resiliency, then your weakness is only temporary. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to keep trying and keep getting better. Look at reports that are nice and copy theirs. You know what I mean? Like, or communication, that one's a little bit hard. Like, if you've got social anxiety or you have some of those type of problems, it can be really difficult to communicate well. But pushing out of that comfort zone, I think, is important. There a lot of technical people, some of the smartest people I know technically are awkward when it comes to like that personal communication skill. I think there's a lot of IT people who are really introverted and they don't want to talk to others. And there's a need for them in the industry, and there's a good fit for you if that's who you are. But if you also can communicate well and you've got soft skills down, that you're going to have so many more opportunities, like incredibly more opportunities if you're both technical and can communicate well. Because especially in like the consulting world, that's what we do. We technically hack stuff, and then we hop on debrief calls and we explain why that hack worked. And sometimes you're talking to people who don't even know how to use Excel, or can't even spell OSCP. So it's important definitely to have those skills for sure.
So I guess with that being said, kind of start bringing it to a close. I know we're running almost an hour 30 now.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts? I think the biggest single most important thing that you can do, that anybody can do, is reach out and talk to people like this.
Yep. 100% agreed. 100%. If you're looking for a job, start by talking to people who have that job. Find out what they did, like we've talked about. But then also, don't be afraid. I mean, I'm sure I'm probably a little annoying on LinkedIn when I'm looking, like I'll search Pentester and I'll connect with anybody who has that title, and I'll add a note saying like, hey, I'm just looking to talk with you. And so I'm sure some people see that and they're like, leave me alone, and I won't hit them more than once. But I think it's important to do, because you've got to find others and you've got to talk with them, and networking is the biggest way to get opportunities for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any other closing thoughts. I really appreciate everybody who took the time to watch this, an hour and a half to hear two guys speak, especially just some dude that's like me that doesn't really know a lot but likes to talk about this stuff. Like, I appreciate you guys hopping on. If you're watching from my stream, please check out Cody's stuff. I've got a link to his channel in the description. And if you're watching on Cody's channel, I'm sure he would like to say something to you.
Yep. Links will be in the description. I try not to give my viewers too much attention, because I have a feeling they'll get a little rowdy. But yes, absolutely. I'll put the links for your YouTube, your Twitch. Anything else?
No, I think that's good for me. I don't really stream on Twitch. I might one day, but
I think I meant to say Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, I meant to say Twitter. I'll put the links for your YouTube and your Twitter in the description. But yeah, if you have any others, I'd be happy to add those too.
No, that's perfect. From there, I can throw out things that might come up. For those that don't know, if you're new and wanting to get into the field, Humble Bundle's got like this awesome deal right now. It's like $18 for 18 books that you can get. I don't have an affiliate link or anything. I've got nothing to gain from that. I just wanted to share because we've been talking about getting into the field, and I don't know how long that deal is going to last. So I would just Google Humble Bundle, like hacking books, and you'll find that. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and that's a really good deal too. One of them in there is a book by Georgia Weidman, Hands-on Penetration Testing. Yep. That is an incredible book, and if you really want to like lay the foundation for your career as a penetration tester, that book has almost everything you need to know.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that I bought that book before I started OSCP and went through it, and it was very valuable. So definitely worth the read.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
getting
man.
to know you better and hearing your stories. I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. And I think a lot of people, will be able to take things away and understand what they need to do to move forward with their lives.
Well, cool, dude. I appreciate you too, and we'll stay in contact, and we'll come up with other projects, and hopefully, if other people ever want to connect on projects, reach out to either of us, and if we've got time, I'm sure that we'd love to get involved. So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thank you for the interview.
All right, catch you later.
See ya. Cool. I don't know how to switch this over, guys. I'm new to the whole. Let's try this. Bear with me. So I'm messing up, and I'm trying to put it on my camera, but I wasn't prepared. So if you're still watching, thank you very much to everybody who was here. I really appreciate you guys kind of checking this out. Please do look at Cody's stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next stream.